Welcome to the Living the Dream podcast with Curveball. If you believe, you can achieve. Welcome to the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, a show where I interview guests that teach, motivate, and inspire. Today's guest is a force in the modern rock scene. His name is Sean Morton, and he is the creative force behind the Quarantine, a grunge and metal project. We're going to be talking to Sean about his band. They've played in 13 countries and they've performed in iconic Los Angeles events, got over 40 million views in TikTok, and they, cover a multitude of things in their music. So we're going to be talking to Sean, and Sean is also a veteran. So thank you for your service, Sean, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Curtis. It's great to be here.
Why don't you start off by telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. I am the um, executive producer and guitarist and vocalist for the Quarantine, obviously, and we've like you said, we've been making some really great headway this last year. I originally grew up in Fort Bragg, California, which is right on the coast, about 4 hours north of San Francisco, and about 4 hours south of Eureka. And I joined the military when I was about 18 years old, and experienced the life in the infantry, and that was a one of a kind, unique experience. And then after that, I went into music school at Musicians Institute, and studied everything that I could. And so I studied not just the techniques of playing guitar and singing, but also the music business sides behind it and the DIY tactics that it would take to progress yourself forward in the industry, even if they aren't giving you the kind of attention that even if you do deserve it, you still have to find a way to stick out from the crowd. So I spent a lot of time learning tactics from many different teachers at Musicians Institute, and still didn't fully prepare me for everything that was going to come at my way. Once I got signed to a sub major of Sony called Lucent Records, and not too long after that, it was disagreements over the production and disagreements over how much studio time we were going to be able to have based off of the contracts that we had, and so eventually we just got dropped. And then from then on, we were doing it on our own. And since then, I am honestly very happy that I've been discovering all of the different ways in which someone can go about promoting their music, that are not the normal ways, we'll say, that people would do it before. I'm looking for the newer ways, utilizing uh, you know the internet and AI to assist you in getting your music out there.
Well, I know that your music hits hard, both sonically and emotionally. So talk about how you, when you're writing for the Quarantine, how you manage aggression with meaning.
Oh yeah, great question. I tried to for me in they always told us in songwriting and crafting stories that conflict is the crux of any great story. Without conflict, a story doesn't really go anywhere. So I added that approach to my music to make it, storytelling in the veins of Johnny Cash or John Prine, or Willie Nelson, or but also incorporating aspects of more modern techniques. So it's not just speaking at them; it's also singing and rapping and using multiple different vocal styles to um, create a world as much as I can, a sonic world to live in that isn't just restricted by, um, just genre, but more of a modality for expression, you know? So, for example, it's a lot easier to get across a whole hell of a lot of words if you've got something to say within a 8 bars of a rap than it is in 8 bars of a rock, a strict rock beat. If you're only having to use the techniques of we'll say Chris Cornell instead of the techniques of Eminem, you you have to use less words when you're Chris Cornell. But when you're Eminem, you can use as many words as you want to, and it makes it even more fun.
Absolutely. Well, talk to the listeners about that album, Aversion to Normalcy. Tell us what inspired it and about the emotional process to creating it.
Oh yeah. So the re- the name Aversion to Normalcy comes from a quote that I have, and that's when tyranny becomes the norm. In order to survive, you'll need an aversion to normalcy, and that's supposed to represent the aspect and the conflict of realizing that your society has pulled the rug out from under you. Everyone around you is no longer who you thought they were. Now, what are you supposed to do? Now you can't go along with the crowd anymore. You have to think for yourself. You have to critically uh, adjudicate your world and mitigate the problems that are coming in, and you have to do it alone. So that's where the emotional stance of the album starts with, and looking we incorporate in Unspoken, we incorporate some of James Baldwin's pin drop speech that he gave at Cambridge University, and that's him describing to a whole bunch of young British people about what it's like to be a black person in pre civil rights era legislation America. And they have a really tough time getting it, lo and behold. But he says some extremely poignant things, and mainly centered around that if it doesn't matter what you think or believe about an entire group, it doesn't matter how racist you are, you still have to have a dialogue. And when you have a dialogue, eventually you realize you have more in common than you do that differentiates you, and that our society uh, can look to focus on keeping the modalities of a conversation focused on results and benefits for everybody, then you've truly got a society. Otherwise, you have an oppressive society. And it's a very, very deep speech, and I absolutely love it in its artistry, and in its delivery. And I realized that his delivery is very, very unique, and it fits rhythmically with the riff that I had for the song Unspoken. So I incorporated them together, sampling the speech. And so, emotionally speaking, to write everything uh, happened over a long period of time. The lyrics, for example, the lyrics in Nemesis Friend of Mine came to me in the middle of a night. I was it was like it woke me up, and I was really, really angry, and I didn't know why, and I didn't realize that it was PTSD taking my nervous system into a place that it didn't. There was no reason for it to go there, and it's part of the disorder that at that time I was still wrapping my head around and still mitigating the symptoms of, and trying to help myself feel like I could become normal again. And the words, uh, the first part of the chorus came to me. It's right around the corner. It's right around the bend. A future with no love and terror with no end. That's what they say to me today with a dirty fucking smile. But I pulled myself out of fear and been crawling for miles. And with that first line, I realized that this is a story about overcoming all of the people who have been in my way. Not just, random obstacles, but the people who stand in your way and the psychology behind that. And when you understand how to confront that with yourself, then you can truly move past it. And there's been a lot of people I've had to create boundaries to keep out of my life because it's been necessary to do so because they've just been wanting to control you and not sustain you or not facilitate or not help you, but just for the sake of control. And there's a lot of, and I found that that conflict transfers beyond just person to person. It transfers from person to society, person to group of people, person to institution, institution to group of people. It is a description of our human existence when we have organized society. And I think it's very, very worthwhile to look at how we stand in each other's ways when we are asking for simple, basic humanities like the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Absolutely. Love it. So you work with some high level musicians and producers. So talk about how those collaborations help shape your sound over time.
Oh man. I mean, it has been a joy. You know, so in music school, I got to study with in guitar, a guy named Dale Turner and Jeff Marshall and Scott Henderson. And these guys are all bringing different approaches to the guitar, but they are all masters in their own way. So they have a technique that they have create that they have techniques that they've created that have turned into their style, and they show you how to do that in a very, very detailed way. And it was such an amazing experience. But at the same, but also on the other side of things, in the audio engineering side, I would work with and have classes with a guy named Dave Isaac. And if you don't know who Dave Isaac is, and you've probably heard his music, because if you've ever heard Michael Jackson, you've heard Dave Isaac's work. And the Bad album from Michael Jackson was a staple of my childhood. When I first heard that, dun 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 dun, I was fucking hooked, man. Like that, it was such a powerful and aggressive thing that was using, you know, just music, not like really angry, distorted guitars in your face, but just music you could instantly feel. And that attracted me from a very, very young age. So when I finally got to sit in front of Dave Isaac and ask him, how did you make that? And he was able to tell me. And I actually got an answer to it. It was that feeling alone of just being able to learn from somebody who's a master at something is a true joy of the process of being a student, but also of being a musician, to have those opportunities. Now, I also worked with producer George G1 Archie, who was the audio engineer for Death Row Records in its day. So he worked with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Tupac and all of the everyone's favorites from that era. And to sit there and watch him mix one of the records was something that I learned so much from. And then again in 2025, when I'm working with Nathan Yarborough, who has worked with Alice in Chains and Hailstorm and Apocalyptica and Evanescence, some of the biggest rock albums of the 21st century. And it's it was amazing to watch him work. I learned so much of just sitting there and watching and asking simple questions and listening and training my ears to pay attention to the changes that are going on. It was like it was all preordained in a way. Like you've been training for so long to assimilate this information, and then finally you get the pieces that you're looking for that make your knowledge complete. It's a feeling like no other. I mean, just all of that is worth it to me. Like everything else that comes on top of the creation, it is just a cherry on top, because learning and knowing that stuff makes my life, man. It makes my life.
Well, I know your music tackles issues like war, addiction, and politics. So do you see your music as an artistic expression or activism or both?
Yeah, I think that there's a place for both. I think that there is a place for music as an a call to action. I also believe that there's a place in music for just emotional catharsis, and there's also a place in music that has nothing to do with anything. It should just be fucking silly, man. Like, what? Why not just use music to make someone smile and laugh and everything? Like, I want to leave the quarantine open to doing that, to be able to tackle tough conversations, and also at a different point um, in the show, we'll say, to be able to have lighthearted and feel good experiences. Like, I don't want it to be just super one dimensional. I want it to be reflective of the human experience, which is a lot of things all at once. But the important things deserve to have their spotlight, and that's trying to promote the better versions of our society that we should all aspire to become. I feel like that, when it's the driving force, doesn't matter if it's funny or sad or tentative or anything. It doesn't matter what the emotion is, as long as it's got that purpose behind it. Then it's going to reach people.
Well, I know the idea of normalcy is central to your latest album. So, what does normal look like for you today?
Our The way we are in the United States is, I believe, antithetical to our founding principles. I believe that our society has gotten out of control. I believe that our society has become one of a uh, focused more on speculation and duplicitous natures, from, I mean, not just in music but into banking. Like, the entire financial crisis of 2008 was because of out of control speculation. Our entire existence is dependent upon it, and that's bullshit, man. That's not built on anything. And I feel like our institutions have been failing us, not just recently but for many many years. But I think that that perspective is not really valid anymore. I think that the institutions have been built to do that, and we're just now realizing it. So normalcy in this case is, and in this case, aversion to that, is to have values and principles and um, your own set of right and wrong when your society rebukes its own sense of right and wrong, when it abandons all of its values. What is your responsibility as an individual? Do you just go along with the normalcy, and even if you know it's heinous, even if you know it's atrocious, even if you know you're contributing to the demise of millions of people just because, or thousands of people, or even one person that will definitively die because what you're doing, if that's a good thing for you, then you need to stop and think. You need to stop and remember your humanity. And it's the fact that we have to have these kind of conversations, and I can say these generalizations, and they probably hit home to an actual experience that your listeners have had, is proof enough that where we're at is not an acceptable place for anyone, and that the changes that we need to make need to come from all of us coming together and standing up for the simple principles that we can all and have all agreed to under the Constitution, and rally around that. At least, if we can't come together on the rest of the shit, we have to come together on, we are endowed with the rights to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness at the very minimum. So that's the stance that I'm taking with that.
Absolutely. So, talk about how serving in the U.S. military and getting deployed to Iraq has shaped your life as well as your music.
Oh man, extremely consequentially. It's my experience in the army is something that will change you forever. Um, from combat experiences, detainee operations, all different kinds of missions, of raid missions, of we saw all different um, kinds of combatants. We got to see some of their stories unfold because some people became uh, aggressive to us. They didn't just start out as enemies. For sometimes they started out as friends. Sometimes interpreters would be leaking information, and so this would be somebody who we've been working with for the last 3 or 4 months. They became our friends. Um, Things like that that really challenge your moral and ethical understandings of the world. And then there's also the aspect of the you're standing right next to a war machine, a gigantic, massive war machine that operates regardless of whether you like it or not, regardless of whether you even exist or not. It's still going to march on, and that's something that we can describe, but when you're truly there, the words never do it justice.
Let's take a quick break.
In Kansas, blind vending operators are vanishing without a trace. No bodies, no witnesses, only silence. Detective Michael Miguel thought he had seen everything, but this case pulls him into something far darker. A web of institutional corruption so deep it was never meant to be uncovered. When vulnerable blind people disappear and bureaucracies close ranks, one question remains: who will fight for justice? As Miguel digs deeper, he uncovers a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of power, a system that exploits the very people it was designed to protect. The truth is buried in paperwork, hidden behind closed doors, guarded by those who have everything to lose. Some conspiracies hide in plain sight. This one hides in the dark. Iron Cane Media presents The Blind Conspiracy, written by Mikhail Battles Sr., available now on Amazon.
Well, I know that you're an advocate for veterans' mental health and alternative therapy. So tell us, what conversations do you feel like still need to be had in regards to that?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's a one that I've um, postured a few times for people. Um, I believe that the Constitution requires us, requires the government to pay for our, as civilians, mental health and counseling because it says provide for the general welfare. Well, now we can measure the general welfare. Whereas before it was, a feeling, or you look at the society and assess, is everyone seeming like they're okay? Seems like it's okay to me. But now we have the ability to measure this definitively and extremely well. Um, and we know that the kind of empathy and support that can come from someone realizing who they are makes all of us better. It makes the entire society operate much more smoothly when people understand who they are and what they're really wanting to go after in their life, and they can overcome the obstacles of the life that they were born into and rise above that to become better than they were before. We need to facilitate that as a country. It's just as important as our physical health, as our regular health care. And I know that even in America, we still don't fucking have that. And it's a disgrace. It's an international disgrace that America does not have universal health care as the richest nation in the world when everyone else does. And it's about time we also understand that and confront that as well. Because until we get that worked out, mental health offered by the government is never going to come across as something that someone is going to fucking volunteer for. They're going to think that it's MK Ultra again. And like, we can't do that shit. We have to provide for the general welfare. So when we go after that, we have to have, there's so many issues in baked into that offering, but it is something that we as a society need to start asking for, because we're not going to get anything that, at least if we don't even ask for it. And it's a very hard thing to come across. I know in my own life, it's been hard to find the strength and the courage and the knowledge to know what to ask for. You know, that itself is a struggle, and we all need to help each other with that.
Well, I know you went from a full band to a solo driven project. So what pushed that shift, and how did that change your creative control?
Um, the well, the creative control was always kind of mine. Um, the guys were ready and willing to go along with just about anything that I had and was offering to the band. Um, I always left in the beginnings. I always left everything open for them to fit in parts, suggest things whenever they wanted to, and most of the time, I kept them busy enough in working with the content that I was already writing. So I was already, used to delegating the musical duties of other instruments, and also understanding how to facilitate someone to grow in that framework. To not stifle them, because that's one thing. It's not just telling them what to do; it's giving them the opportunity to flourish and use their own skills to make it better than even what I thought. To draw the best performance out of them. That's the real goal. So that was always the mentality and environment that I created around the quarantine, and I keep and maintain that, even if it's just me, or if it's me with a bunch of, as in the case of Aversion to Normalcy, me and a bunch of some of the best studio musicians that Nashville has to offer.
Well, I know that you obtained success, college radio, streaming, TikTok. So talk about, as an independent artist, how do you navigate the modern music landscape?
Oh, well, even those, I don't even consider those actual like successes. Those are just signposts along the way, man. Like, that's just telling me that I'm onto something. That's not a success, because to me, views are simply just a measuring indicator of your marketing power. That's really what it is. It's not how much somebody likes you. It's not your value as an artist. It's none of those things. Your value as an artist exists in your art and in the experience that your fans or anyone listening to it has because of it. That's the true value in it. Um, we can only try to measure that with those numbers. So that's a very important thing to remember, because that leaves the focus on creating and making the best possible music that you can with what you have and everything that you know. I'm putting your entire self into it. That's what's really, really important. It's not just that. But to me, navigating the industry nowadays requires a real um, ability to think outside the box. For example, um, I recently hired a virtual assistant to help me create a entirely autonomous and print on demand merch service. And that's something that I could never do on my own. It doesn't matter that Shopify is a site that I can go to. I don't know how to do it. So I need to delegate that to someone who I trust, who has accountability and a measurable way to see if it's succeeding, and let that unfold. So this is really the future of music, is making an artist centric um, business where the revenue streams are maintained and controlled by the artists themselves, and they are outsourcing other companies and people to help them boost the revenue sources. That should be the overall goal of any musician wanting to make it in the industry, not views. It's not views. Views are cursory to and a result of all of the rest of the planning that I was talking about. If you don't have the systems, man, fuck the views. The views don't even matter because what about the subscribers? What about the followers? Those are really what you want to build. And you're going to do that by being as authentic as you can and making systems that that help you maintain your ability to put out good quality content and not go crazy, you know? And so that means you got to take it as slow as you need to, learn on the pace that you can, and try to take in the new ways that you can help yourself accomplish things faster. Meaning, using AI to write your marketing plan for you is a really good idea. It's a really good idea because it'll give you a basis and a framework and a semblance of a skeleton to make a plan, and then you can start editing it yourself. But you still got to know all the parts of a marketing plan to make sure that it'll still work, right? So that means the knowledge has to follow your intention. And a lot of times your intention has to lead you to knowledge, not away from it. So you can't sit there and focus on, I'm just going to be a rock star. I'm going to drink my life away. No, not anymore. Not today. That doesn't work. Nobody's going to like you. Nobody's going to care. And then you're going to end up drinking alone and probably dying. So it's really, really important that people understand that navigating the industry nowadays is about not necessarily just collaboration with anyone who will work with you, but deliberately and specifically finding the subject matter experts who will actually help your revenue streams grow. Because Spotify isn't going to change how much it pays artists anytime soon. But you know what does change? Bandcamp. You can get people to pay you any amount of money for your records if you market to them well enough. So that's the avenue that works better. And any streams that you get on Spotify because of playlisting is gravy, but you still have to invest into that avenue in order to get results from it. So all of these things are happening at the same time in the music industry. And they affect every single artist who goes online, not just the ones who are signed to a label. This affects them too. They just have entire teams who are able to handle the weight of that. And I'm telling you right now, the weight of all of that is usually going to be too much for one person. Definitely, probably too much for one person. I trained for this shit and I still have to outsource stuff. There is still a whole bunch of things that I don't have down 100%. So I need experts to help me. And that means you got to know who to ask and you got to research the right people for you. And when you take the reins in that way, then it's dependent on your motivation. And that's a game I'm willing to play because my motivation for this is unending. And I know that. So if you're the same way, then you can do this. You just have to think about it and not try to walk the well-trodden path, but to forge a new one with the tools that you have at your disposal today.
Well, for someone who might listen to your music for the first time, what do you hope they walk away feeling or thinking about their own life?
Hmm. Um, I hope that it helps them reflect. Yeah, I hope that it helps them reflect on their life and the world around them. Not just their life, but their life in the world around them. Um, I think that opening up your mind um, to different perspectives that lead you to uh, gratitude is the best way to resolve depression and anxiety. Because usually when you're sad like that, the two things you're missing are perspective and gratitude. So I hope that my music delivers that for people in some form or another, you know?
Well, tell us about any other upcoming projects that you're working on that listeners need to be aware of.
Um, right now we have we're in the works of making a mini documentary about my experience in the military, and the music industry as a whole. We're also have two new singles that will be coming out later on this year, along with more content surrounding aversion to normalcy. So we've got um, a lot of different kinds of content that we're going to bring to people. Performance stuff and stuff that helps the recorded audio grow.
Well, so people can keep up with everything that you're up to, throw out your contact info.
Oh yeah, that you can follow us at thequarantined.com. You search for us on any of the social medias at the quarantined. You'll find us. Just look for the skull with the gas mask on it. That's us. Um, and You can find us on all the streaming services, and uh, on our website as well, thequarantined.com.
All right, we'll close this out with some final thoughts. Maybe if there was something I forgot to talk about that you would like to touch on, or any final thoughts you have for the listeners.
Um, Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate you guys paying attention, and feel free to reach out to me on the social medias and tell me what you think.
Real quick, how did you guys come up with the name The Quarantined?
Oh, actually, I came up with it when I was a teenager, and it was to represent um, the process of otherization, to describe the situation of otherization.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, thequarantined.com. Check out everything that Sean is up to and gonna be up to. Definitely got some exciting stuff coming out. And please follow, rate, review, and share this episode to as many people as possible. And for some exclusive information to get the scoop, behind the scenes, things like new episode releases and all things living the dream, please go sign up for the Living the Dream with Curveball newsletter at www.curveball337.com if you haven't already done so. And if you have done so, go to the website, share the website and the show to everybody you know. Drop us a line, leave us a review, comment, any guest suggestions or any suggestions that you might have. Thank you for listening and supporting the show. And Sean, once again, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for your support so much. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
For more information on the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, visit www.curveball337.com. Until next time, keep living the dream.